Hey, welcome to the Local Marketing Beat, brought to you by Uberall. I am Christian Ariola, and I will be your host today. The Local Marketing Beat is all about helping location marketers stay in the know on the hottest digital trends across the web. We'll surface need-to-know updates related to local digital marketing and ask the experts what they know, why it matters, and what it means for location marketers. So what's on the beat on Local Marketing Street this month? Let's get into it. We have a great guest today, and we have a very special report that we're talking about, some really cool insights. So our guest today is Claudia Tomina, who is the owner of Reputation Arm, a leading SaaS platform specializing in helping local businesses enhance their online presence, which is what we love to talk about here. You can also find her on the Google Forum as a product expert, helping local businesses troubleshoot common issues such as suspensions, review removals, verification challenges, and other complex issues. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I'm excited because I love experiments. I love what you find after the experiments. I love to hear about the theories, and you even have proof of what we're talking about today.
I'm the same way. I love to talk about different ranking factors, what I'm thinking, what other people are thinking. Do you think this is, boosting rankings? And so I really spent a lot of time digging into Google business profiles and what makes something rank. And so just being able to talk about it with somebody else is always exciting.
That's awesome. And just for everybody listening, to give you a little bit of context, Claudia and her team did an experiment about ranking factors, specifically in this case for restaurant. We're talking about, menu items, we're talking about photos, reviews, and we're going to dig deeper into there. But why don't we start there, Claudia? From this experiment that you guys did, what was the role of menu items in Google Business Profile rankings?
Yeah, so I actually stumbled on this by accident because I was looking at a client's Google Business Profile, and I know they're known for having tableside Caesar salads. And they have a ton of reviews. And so I started thinking man, they have so many reviews regarding Caesar salad. Let me just search Caesar salad and they're going to have to rank number one. Well, it turned out they weren't ranking for Caesar salad. And I was so confused by it. I was so intrigued. So I was like, I have to figure this out. If they have 39 mentions of reviews that mention tableside Caesar and it's happening so often, the velocity of it, and they have images of Caesar salad, what am I missing? So I kept looking at the ranking reports and looking at competitors and trying to understand why is this competitor ranking for Caesar salad? They don't have as many reviews. What's going on? So I started digging deeper. And then I realized, their menu item says Caesar kitchen. So it's an authentic Italian restaurant. And so a lot of the menu items, they were kind of had fancy names. So, they were trying to be in line with their branding and, be authentic and Italian. And so they labeled it Caesar Kitchen. So I reached out to the general manager that I deal with for this client. And I was like, I need you to do me a favor, change this menu item to say Caesar salad, not Caesar Kitchen. Well, sure enough, that day it ranked number one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I've never tested this personally, but every time I see it on a menu, right, when they come up with very crafty names, very sophisticated names of dishes, you always wonder that, right? It's like you can't even tell what it is because of such a name. Like you really have to read the description to figure out what it is. But in this case with Google, we've talked about having keywords in the business name, but now we're talking about the menu.
Right. Well, every search query is a little bit different. And I think Google looks at different ranking factors for specific search query terms. So in this particular case, Google knows it's a menu food item. And so it would make sense for them to look at the menu on a Google business profile to see if this restaurant actually carries it. And actually the more I think about it, just because you put a keyword in a review, why should Google rank you? You can have a menu item in reviews, but it could be a special. And then what if you're not offering that anymore? So it totally makes sense that you have to have multiple layers that Google's looking at before they're going to just trust it. So it's a lot of trust factors. I call them, I call them layers basically. And so like you have to give a bunch of signals so that Google can trust and rank you for the specific search query.
And speaking about reviews, and even to mentioning, you call the general manager, change the menu. Did they change it on the website? Did they change it on the physical menus at the restaurant, or was this just on Google Business?
So it's integrated with their online
Gotcha.
ordering system. But actually, it wasn't. Their menu on their website is actually totally separate, and we could get into that as far as like local SEO for a restaurant, because Google bakes in so many layers and the APIs with the menu, the photos, and the reviews. I think that SEO on the website is a lot less significant and looked at. And you need to really focus on your Google business profile. And I mean, obviously, it's not always the case in every category, but
Right.
I believe that hotels and restaurants have a lot more layers and signals on the Google business profile that Google's looking at first before they look at the website.
Yeah, I was about to say that we've had a guest here in the past with a very large hotel chain, and we kind of talked a little bit about similar things where it was mainly focused heavily on the Google business profile over their website. So it was a very similar conversation.
Yeah, there's definitely treats restaurants and hotels. And I think it was even discussed on another podcast as far as like the Google API leak and how there is a special attention for restaurants and hotels.
And when we were mentioning reviews, right? Because this is a well-known, I guess let's call it myth for now, that, keywords in reviews, however you acquire them, right? I mean, there's somebody's asking, an employee is asking for them and like, hey, make sure you mention this word, right? Or make sure you talk about this. What's your take on how reviews are impacting rankings, especially for a restaurant?
So I think they're critical for a restaurant because there's so much data that Google is collecting when somebody is leaving a review. Not only are you giving it a 5-star rating, then they're asking you separately how the food is, how the atmosphere is, and or the ambiance. And then they're asking, how much did you spend? Did you have lunch, dinner? So when they're asking for all this information in the reviews, and then it's affecting your Google business profile and it's updating certain attributes possibly. And so there's just so much data that Google is collecting, and it's kind of a way to keep it optimized, really. Like if you have a small mom and pop shop and they're not doing anything on their Google business profile, but they tend to get great reviews, they can keep relevant. So reviews are critical for restaurants.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I started a while back, I started noticing that it just kept asking for more questions every time I go leave a review, right? Like it's no longer just your star and your paragraph. It's like, now it's like, what did you think of the place? Did you categorize it as this or this? How much did you spend? I thought that was really cool.
We offer vegetarian dishes. How much did you
Yeah.
spend? Yeah.
And the how much you spent, it shows on reviews too, right? Like when you go to a restaurant, you read reviews, and then it says, oh, this person spent between $40 and $60 or $60 to $80. That's very neat. I think it's very helpful as a consumer.
Yeah, and definitely it's going to affect like certain search queries if somebody's looking for like cheap lunches or, high-end, nice fine dining. So they're going to typically rank restaurants that are more high-end and where you're going to spend more. So they're not going to rank you a pizza shop, right? So these are all factors that they're looking at that can affect like different search queries.
Now, in your experiment, did you guys play with the popular times? I'm sure you heard that the trend that was going on, right? It went viral because everybody was talking about a business that's close is not ranking. Is it open? Is ranking, right? What was your take on that?
So it's funny because when I was like trying to understand the Caesar salad issue and what I was doing, I was always testing at this one specific time of the day that I seem to have like found that like, okay, I'm done checking my emails. I'm going to start looking at this. And then I realized like oh, you know what? It's lunchtime. So that's why this restaurant's
Mm.
outranking me. Let me run a scan at dinner time. But even then, I wasn't ranking at dinner time. So which really was supposed to, so I started considering like
Yeah.
openness time, but I still needed the menu item to say Caesar salad. But at
Mm.
the end of the day, I started realizing, okay, I need to pay more attention to when I'm running these ranking reports because it really is making a difference on whether I'm in, top 3 position or maybe
Mhm.
top 8. So if you're not a restaurant that's open for lunch, you really shouldn't be expecting to hit top rankings during lunch times, right?
Right.
And the popular times thing, I actually like discovered by accident, obviously, just by looking in and just researching and trying to understand why is this competitor being ranked right now? What is Google looking at on this Google business profile for this search query? And then I
Mhm.
realized popular times just like stood out to me. Like this listing was unverified, wasn't verified. They had reviews, and it's in the area, right? So it's around
Yeah.
me, and I know it's a popular deli. Like people go there. It's always busy. They do they do get a ton of business. They don't care about their Google business profile because they just get a lot of walk-in traffic. They're a good deli. They have a great name. But they at this particular time, which was around 2 p.m., which is really not lunchtime, it's not dinner time,
Mhm.
they had busier than usual. So then I started really looking into popular times. But what I do is a lot is I'll open up the Google API leak and then I try
Mhm.
to search for different terms to back up my theories. And then I
Oh,
found,
nice.
right. So then I found um, Google specifically talks about in the Google API leak that it's that popular times is a if something is live busier than usual, those are the exact words, then it's a potential boost, a ranking boost. So to me, that was like my answer right there.
Right.
Like Google's telling us if something's busy, and then I went and I found this blog on Google's website that talks about popular times and why they track it, and they were explaining how it's important, right? Because if there's a disaster and people need to get supplies for something, or it even mentioned an ice cream place that maybe is running a sale and then they happen to be like really popular. So definitely if your business sees like a peak in popular times, you're gonna notice that you're gonna rank at that specific time. It's like a boost.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you're looking at the Google leak, trying to find, data to back up your theory. And for those of you listening to us, there was a very long leak of documents that, talk about Google ranking. So this is what we're referring to. Now, on your experiment, I think I read that it was, I don't know if it was multiple restaurants, but the one I remember was a sushi place. So, in the case of a sushi restaurant, there were several actions that you took. Can you tell us a little bit of what was like the most impactful factors, but also what else did you do to a profile in the case of a sushi restaurant?
So this particular client was like, it's a Japanese kind of Asian fusion with sushi, and they didn't have sushi restaurant as their primary category. So they were like, we we need help. We want to rank better. And I was like, was there a reason why you're not putting sushi restaurant as your primary category? I mean, I understand that you sell sushi, but you also have a lot of other dishes. I believe that there's more search volume in sushi. Do you want to change your primary category? And they really thought about it and they were like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. So before I even changed the category, I started looking at the ranking factors. And we weren't ranking top 4 for sushi in the area. We had menu highlights that had sushi. A lot of the menu items had roll. So I recommended that we change the menu item name to say like California sushi roll and not just California roll. So you'll notice a lot of sushi restaurants do that. Everything's labeled roll. So
Gotcha.
I was like, let me throw in more sushi, more keywords in there and menu items. And then I did see a boost in ranking. We had a ton of images from customers leaving reviews of sushi. And then finally, the last thing I did, oh, by the way, they had sushi in their name. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
I didn't have to
Yeah.
change that. And then finally, I made sure that I changed the primary category. And then now they're always in top 3, depending on the time of day, of course.
Right.
But yeah, I do find them ranking top for sushi. So what I find, if Google has a specific category for your cuisine, so if you want to rank for Italian restaurant, your primary category needs to be Italian restaurant. So
Mhm.
for that specific search query, right? Same thing with sushi. Pizza, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like there's times where they're not just showing, like, obviously pizza restaurants dominate at certain times of the day, but
Yep.
I still find clients that don't have that as a primary category that rank well for pizza near me. So there's other factors that Google's looking at. But yeah, definitely name and category still very important.
And it's often overlooked, right? Like because you just think about a restaurant and the business owner or the manager just picks restaurant and missing out that there was a
Oh,
specific
yeah.
sushi, right? Sushi category that they could have picked. And in your search for this experiment, did you guys test anything about imagery, photos, whether as owner posted the photos or a customer posted the photos? Did you guys notice anything on that matter when it comes to rankings?
Yeah, definitely. I believe photos play a big role in the way Google's looking at your Google business profile. It's a trust factor.
Mhm.
So, like, I had a business profile that was brand new business just opened up. I created the listing. I uploaded photos. So we always have like a set of like 10 professional photos that we upload for the brand. And then DoorDash always connects to the Google business profile. So then we had the menu connected. And then there's images from DoorDash that got imported into the Google business profile. So there's 0 reviews at this point. It's a brand
Mhm.
new Google business profile, but they already have menu highlights and menu names. And they could potentially already have, like, I could see that the engagements and like are getting better and better every week. And there's no reviews there. So photos do play a big role. Like it's you're sending Google signals like, hey, we have sliders, we have hamburgers, we have French fries, So if these are keywords you're trying to rank for, then like sushi, you want images of sushi. If you have
Right.
state, you want to make sure you have states. But again, like every search keyword is like a little bit different.
Mhm.
So like I noticed with shrimp, you should probably have like seafood restaurant as a category because
Right.
when I search shrimp, it's more prominently like the seafood category is on top. It's not to say that you have to have it as your primary, but it should be listed as a secondary. So that's where all these secondary categories come into play. You got to make sure you're picking your primary. That's your main thing that you want to make sure you're always ranking for, and then make sure that you're adding in up to however many other restaurant categories you can that are applicable.
Yeah, I think that's another one. I mentioned it earlier, right? With the when we were talking about hotels, the chain noticed that these are very luxurious resorts, and they were not ranking for pool hotel unless they had a picture with a pool in it.
Yeah.
So that's the exact same thing that we're talking about. Back in the day, we used to say, as SEOs, we used to say Google can't see your images, right? Like, so use alt text and try to describe the image. I don't think that's the case anymore.
No, not at all. Google knows exactly what it is. And you'll see that through menu highlights because they're looking at all the other signals and they're like, oh, and they label your menu item for you. And it's not always because there's a keyword in the review. I think that's looked at, but I do believe that they understand that this is on your menu. This is an image of a hamburger. We're going to label it, Wagyu hamburger, right? So, because you don't have hamburger as your menu item, maybe it's Wagyu. So it knows to add Wagyu hamburger. So there's different signals that they're looking at, but yeah, I've tested it also with service-based companies too.
Oh,
You definitely need to have images of different services that you're providing if you want to rank for that keyword. And it makes sense because when you search something on Google Maps, Google's adjusting, photos, and they're prominently showing you photos of what you're searching for. And then think about how they have discover through photos now
yeah.
as like an option. So now you're basically, if you don't have photos of a menu item, then you're not going to be in there, and then you could potentially lose out on more impressions and more clicks.
And I also think, I mean, when you're searching on Google Maps, it's getting a lot more graphical, right? Like pictures are getting more predominant, they're getting bigger. I noticed the other day you could even, I don't know how, if this is, I haven't tested it, so I don't know if this is a ranking factor, but an image says how long ago was posted right on the corner. I don't know if that's to help the consumer, right? Like saying, oh, this was like 3 days ago, this was 20 days ago, this was 30 days ago. I thought that was interesting, right?
Yeah,
But how does this translate? Because you mentioned the menu highlights, so I want to explain that to everybody listening. How does menu highlights and how does it become a thing, right? Like, is this from third party or is this just like do we as a user of Google Business Profile do we have access to enable that, or how does that work?
So Google just does everything in the background, right? So they're just taking from third-party sources, whether it's DoorDash, Uber Eats, if you have your menu, active somewhere, or they're pretty much pulling it in. They want that data because, like Spertoro always says, like they create this ecosystem. They want you to stay in their ecosystem. So the more data they can bring into your Google Business Profile to keep users in their ecosystem, that's what they're doing. So whether you're supplying it, they're going to find it. So you got to be
Right.
careful. But it's a good thing too. It's not necessarily bad. It's a good thing. And yeah, so the menu highlights are pretty much, or they'll just come through. And then I've noticed that if there's reviews that mention specific menu items, then there you have potential for getting a menu highlight. Menu highlights do change. For the most part, there's 20 at a time. And I believe that they like rotate the menu items. If you have like a lot of menu items, it's not always going to be the same week after week. And then also menu highlights are what Google shows a consumer when they're leaving a review for recommended dishes. So if you want something to be a recommended dish on reviews, it needs to be a menu highlight first.
Interesting. Now, just to throw a curveball at you, but not to put you on the spot or anything. I remember a few years ago when especially during COVID times, where it was all about support local mom and pops, right? It was like order directly, don't use third party because of the fees, because of this and that. Do you think that let's assume that there's some restaurants out there against their party, right? Like they don't want to be on DoorDash, they don't want to do that, they want to just do direct. Do you think that could hurt their rankings?
Yeah, I do. So I used to I was, like pro, my clients and their brands. And like, we used to get so mad when DoorDash, just hijacked our listings and not just DoorDash, Slice, they all do it. Every third party vendor just wants that's real estate. So, and then, yeah, you're paying extra fees, and it's like you have these contracts to be on these sites, but you want them to use your own system because a lot of brands have their own online ordering system that they would prefer consumers use. But so if you have your own system, you need to make sure it's integrated within your Google Business Profile through an API. And then you can remove DoorDash. I mean, you can remove DoorDash and all these other third parties by requesting it, right? It takes them a while, but they will remove themselves. But you have to make sure that you have some type of integration. I'm not saying DoorDash is going to be better, but DoorDash does a really good job of getting in there and getting everything like integrated seamlessly. They just do it, and they had the storefront by DoorDash, which I thought was going away, but has not gone away.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not trying to go, pro or con any of them. I was just very curious because of this, where we're talking about, and I could see it happening, right? Because you don't have that third party support that's fully integrated, that knows what they're doing. They're sending all the data. you try to do it on your own with your own POS that is not connected, I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Correct. I mean, I think Google just trusts it too. When it's like, if you know this, if you manually enter in a service on like service-based categories, it's really, you don't rank as good as than if you have the like predefined services that Google gives you for certain categories. It's way easier to rank for a predefined service than it is for a service that you manually enter. So there's something about these like APIs or these predefined like terms that Google's providing. So you need to make sure that if Google has it in there, you're using it.
That's
Booking
great.
link,
Now,
everything.
yeah, no, that's great. And I guess my last one that I wanted to touch base with you was, do you have any actionable items, actionable recommendations that you can give to restaurants that are listening to us, whether they're mom and pops, whether they're franchises or, corporate owned? What can they be doing on a regular basis to maintain Google business profiles, up to date, ranking, whatever you may be, but maximizing their performance?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing is making sure you have a review campaign in place. I highly recommend putting in something that's like automated. So, and I know a lot of restaurants, because a lot of the brands I'm working with have a different system for online orders. And then if people dine in, there might be a different system. And then there's different reservation systems. You need to make sure you're tapping in to all your systems. And then as soon as a customer comes in, whether it's through takeout or through a reservation system, you're sending them a review request, and just keep it organic as much as possible so that there's like no manual stuff. Because if you try to manually do it and you have one employee that's taking care of it and there's turnover and then it kind of gets neglected for a little bit, it's so much better when it's just automated through an API, if that's possible.
Great. And, if everybody that is listening, you made it so far into the video or the podcast episode, I do want to say that Claudia and I are going to go deeper into the analytics and the results of the study in a future webinar. So it's coming up September 26th. You're all inviting. So we're going to definitely go more technical into the results, your findings. But with that, thank you so much, Claudia. I think we had a great conversation today, a lot to learn, a lot to take, especially for our restaurant operators out there. So if anybody listening wants to connect with you, how can they get in touch? What can they do to follow you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm always posting on LinkedIn and Twitter. And, I'm on the Google forums, always helping businesses as a platinum product expert. So you find me there. And you could just Google Reputation Arm. You'll find me. I have a contact page. You'll be able to connect with me through any of those ways.
Awesome. And we're going to drop the links in the description box below the video. So if you want to connect with Claudia. But again, thank you so much, Claudia. Very valuable. And like I said, we're going to see each other again in our webinar coming up September 26th. Everybody's invited.
I have some tips to share. We'll be good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. If you like this video, give it a like, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget, you can listen to us on the go as well on Spotify. So with that, we'll see you on the next one.